This right here, that's my campaign world. It is an entire living secondary world, and I was able to build this entire thing because I have a secret method. The player's learning horizon allows me to treat details like fractals. And if that sounds like a bunch of nonsense, let me break it down for you. Basically, you treat each area like an instanced world. And then, once inside that instance, you then realize that each sub-area is its own instance, and each instance is full of more instances, and it goes on and on like that. Once your players understand this, they'll believe in your world more because that's what the real world feels like. Welcome to Mystic Arts, where I world build like a maniac, and I can't stop myself from trying to convince you to do the same. My name is Daði, I'm a professional writer and director, and I've been DMing for over 10 years. If you want to make an incredibly vast and rich world full of countless minutiae and intricate details, then you've come to the right place, because I've run 70 adventures in the same world. Every adventure permanently changed something about my campaign world, because every adventure had the potential to define something. Cause and effect, the consequences of certain actions, right? It's an entire reality. It's complex. And no matter where you look, there is details to be revealed. But how do you do that? Well, before you do anything, let's define some of our terms. Some folks get confused on whether something is an adventure or a campaign, but there is an accepted answer. Campaign, adventure, session. One campaign has many adventures, and one adventure has many sessions. And your campaign is set in some place. That is your campaign setting. But I think a campaign world has many campaign settings in it. World, setting, location. A world has many settings, and a setting has many locations. Because I really don't think a setting and a world are the same thing. A world can have loads of settings in it. I'm sometimes asked how I manage to run all my games in the same campaign setting, and doesn't it get dull? It doesn't. And I don't. I run everything in the same world. It's a self-consistent reality, but it's hardly one campaign setting. This map on my wall is massive. It's Orathon, the mortal plane of my multiverse. And there's other planes, and sometimes we play in them, but this, the mortal plane, is not one campaign setting either. It's a bunch of them. Look. Cowboys, knights, pirates, Vikings, pharaohs, Waterdeep, dwarves, Blackguard, which it's like a Victorian era London that's going through an industrialization, but it's also going through like a huge economic recession. I really need to summarize that last one better. My campaign world is actually a bunch of different campaign settings, and yours could be too. Think of it this way. You might be browsing the internet and find something like Sky Zephyrs, the sponsor of today's video. Well, I might think to myself, man, that doesn't really fit with my campaign setting. I run an industrialized metropolitan fantasy city, and that doesn't gel well with a bunch of airships, so I can't use it. And then I don't get to use those cool rules just because it doesn't fit with my setting. But let's do a quick background on that word. The phrase campaign setting is a term we roleplay gamers borrow from wargamers, who thought of campaigns as theaters of a war. Like the Gallipoli campaign, Hannibal's campaign during the Second Punic War against the Romans, or the campaign for North Africa in World War II, the sequel that jumped the shark. So if that's a campaign, it's got to be set someplace, a setting. And all of those campaigns I mentioned were real wars on Earth, the most popular campaign setting. But were they in the same setting? I mean, there's a pretty massive difference between World War II and the Romans fighting the Carthaginians during the Second Punic War. For one, when Hannibal used the elephants to cross the Alps, the Carthaginians weren't doing it because they thought the Romans had invented the nuclear bomb. I mean, I guess both conflicts used elephants as cargo transport. Both of them happened in the same general area, but almost 2,000 years apart. But even if we pick the same time period, there's a massive difference in tech levels and general vibes depending on where you are in the world. Like I mentioned the last time I did a video on this topic, there was a 22-year window in which a samurai could have sent a fax to Abraham Lincoln. Or by the end of the Wild West, there were skyscrapers in New York. Or they were shooting guns in China before the Normans conquered England, and the British Empire famously struggled with the Zulu. One side had spears and the other had guns. Earth mixes genres all the time. And I think mixing genres in your games will create a certain level of verisimilitude. Think of your favorite fantasy or sci-fi movie, it often has a single, slightly out-of-genre character in there to imply the scale of the world, like the Edenic gardener who joins the heroic fellowship, or funny rockman who fights in Ragnarok, or even Sergeant Powell, the Simpson-esque cop in Die Hard. Obviously, they're not entirely out of place, it's not Spider-Ham or anything, but they're standing in contrast to the rest of the cast, and by providing the contrast, the world feels more real. Like it's got more shades than just one. But what's more is that I don't even think you need to mix that much. You could introduce samurai to your setting over there in Samurai Land, and then not have them anywhere else. You could then introduce firearms in your cowboy setting and then have them not be anywhere else, or at the very least be very rare. You can create these little instanced worlds, like MMOs do, and isolate them with themes to your setting inside your world. Like, I have a big pirate setting within Orathon, but it's not constantly showing up everywhere. But it is there. And on occasion, it does show up, and we mix genres, pirates versus samurai or whatever. And that's really fun. But I don't have to. I can run a pirate adventure in one location, and then run a cowboy adventure in another location. 2 separate instances. And when players play in the pirate adventure, they make characters appropriate for that setting. Whereas if they're playing in the samurai land, they go make samurais, or monks, or whatever else my white players think is cool about Fantasy Asia. We let ourselves lean into each individual setting within the world. We might look at Sky Zephyrs and think, hell yeah, I think this is what my plane of air looks like. And I'm inspired by their airship combat rules and decide to head over to their website and buy the book and incorporate it into my setting. If that's you, by the way, use the coupon code MysticArts for 20% off of any order, including their other book, The Wandering Tavern. But you get my point. We get inspired and we use that inspiration. We don't deny it to ourselves because it wouldn't fit my world, which is a sentiment I see a lot online and I never understand. It doesn't fit my adventure? Yeah, that I understand. I've got an adventure with a theme, like the naval campaign we talked about a couple of weeks ago, and a nation of cowboys and samurais maybe doesn't fit with that. But surely they can still exist in your world. It's an entire world. You could still meet a cowboy. Why not? If cowboy westerns feature Chinese characters, or the colonists meet Pocahontas, or the Zulu historically embarrass the Brits, all real, actual examples of genre crossing in the real world, by the way, why can't a cowboy meet the pirates? Maybe you just don't want to do that, and that's fine. It's your game. All I'm saying is don't hem yourself in. But you might have another issue with this approach. You might think it sounds shallow. Why would there be a whole culture of cowboys out there? That's not how cultures work. And you're right, but it's useful to us. Because while we're not playing in Cowboy Land, we're free to reduce Cowboy Land down to that simple idea, the land where cowboys are from. We conjure a reductive image in our mind. Vast plains, deserts, frontiersmen, cows, boys, etc. But the moment you go there, you discover that setting details are actually fractals of instanced worlds. Cowboy Land is an instanced world, like its own campaign setting in my grander world. But the moment we go in, we learn there are instanced worlds within that instanced world. Cowboy Land isn't just Cowboy Land. It's called Ariston, and it's a whole continent. There's the south, which is very Magnificent Seven, but then we go north, which is more of that sort of Hateful Eight vibe. But then, in between, there's Blackguard, a big industrial metropolis, and it's like Victorian London, full of factories and smoke and child labor. Now we've got sub-settings. Cowboy Land turned out to be loads of settings all nestled together. Each is still a simplified instance, at least at a glance, until we go there and render in more details. And when we visit Industrial Metropolis and learn that there is Parliament, factory towns, massive corporate dockyards, grimy suburbs, and a whole city in the sewer system and more, it's a bunch of settings. And you might even learn the sewer system has its own details further in. The bowels, a collection of lead-lined tunnels used during the Great War. But then there's the sewers in the nation of Radigan, who build weapons out of raw magic. Pay no attention to them. They can't be real. The Radigan, we learn, are planning on taking over the world. But that's just the faction leading the Radigan at this current moment. There's actually all kinds of Radigan. There's revolutionaries in the sewer society and regular citizens living in the city above. Only One of those sewer revolutionaries is actually a part of the revolution that's working with another cult who wants to raise the serpent to eat the sun. You go on spinning details as you zoom into your setting. More and more details as you go along. You're never done building. There is always more details in more instanced worlds. Endless. Like fractals. I remember coming to this conclusion on this map making stream. I was just doodling away at building my own sort of Egyptian analog nation, the Arid, and then drawing the rivers. And we, me, Magnus, and chat all realized together that the rivers must be the sources of different cultures within the Arid. I remember coming to the same conclusion while writing my Obsidian page for my wiki about human cultures, and I kept adding more and more subcultures. There was no end to them. And once I've decided to make an arbitrary end to them, the world will stop being real. It's because of the Dunning-Kruger effect, right? The more you know you don't know. If you think I'm here telling you that you cannot start playing D&D without first building out a world like mine, then you've missed the point of the video. I'm talking about building out a world one adventure at a time. The way you get a world this big is by playing. I made a video on the subject called Stop Building Worlds, but basically you can't be done building a campaign setting because everything you create for your world invites more questions about the world. It's this hamster wheel of creativity that'll never stop. So stop trying to make it stop and enjoy the ride of making shit up as you go. Invent a new culture. Create new subcultures because that's what it feels like living in the real world. You're always discovering how astoundingly dumb you are. Do that to your players. Introduce them to new cultures, settings, characters, or even things they thought they understood, like gods or the rules for magic. When they go to Cowboy Land, they might discover a new god they hadn't realized existed in your setting. When you run an adventure set a few thousand years in your world's past, go on and invent a whole new pantheon, and the players will be hooked. They'll be thinking about how this pantheon died to make way for the modern one. And you run an adventure about that. The greatest verisimilitude you can create is that feeling of there being more to know about the world than you or anyone can ever hope to understand. You're always learning new information, always expanding the world, expanding your players' understanding of what they know and what they know they don't know. This creates a breadth of information that feels real. And you can do this by treating each part of your world like an instance setting to be developed, delved into, deeper and deeper when the opportunity arises. You start by painting with a broad brush, utilizing cliches to do your work for you. And then, when you have an adventure or a campaign you can run in that instance setting, you subvert expectations by revealing more and more depth the further into your setting your players delve. Subcultures, new histories, new gods. You expand the player's knowledge to get them feeling the abyss of how much you understand about your setting. And to them, your world will seem real, like you know everything. And here's the beauty. The longer you do this, the longer you build, the more you will actually know everything. Of course, you could decide to run boutique campaign worlds for every adventure. I mean, Dimension 20 does it, and it's amazing. There's a million ways to play this game, and this video is just about my method and how I got to make this massive map on the wall behind me. This video idea came to me when I was in a call in the Voice Yaps channel on our Discord. A patron joined that call and told me how excited she was about the Drylands of the Colossus campaign frame in Daggerheart, and I realized I could set that in my world. I wanted to set that in my world. Same with Sky Zephyrs. I saw it, and I wanted to find a place for it in my world. I collect adventures, campaign settings, modules, and whatever else, and I just run them. Sometimes I adjust the names a bit or shuffle some stuff around, but sometimes I don't. I don't punish myself to only run Forgotten Realms adventures in Ed Greenwood's campaign world. I run them in my world, and that way I expand my world for my table. Don't just steal adventures. Steal settings for your world. I find it hard to tell people about my campaign world because it's so big, and I can't summarize it in a single sentence. It's not a single theme or idea extrapolated out to a logical extreme. I can't say in a galaxy far, far away, or where water is as important as oil, or where iron is rarer than gold, because my entire world isn't just that one idea. But it has those ideas in it, in some specific locations, in some specific settings. Sometimes those settings are other countries on the world map, sometimes they're planes or other time periods, but It all exists in my world. I could tell just about any sort of story in my world. And I love it. And that's where we'll pick it up next time. Thanks so much for watching this video. This channel is run by me and my girlfriend. And if you want to support us directly, consider joining our Patreon and joining us in voice yaps whenever there is a conversation going on. And if you're feeling especially generous, you might like the video, comment, share, and subscribe, and hit the bell to be notified when we release new videos. Until next time, keep studying the mystic arts.